Hello and welcome in, everybody. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we will be continuing with the My Thoughts series, and here to break down the LA Chargers is Memphis Young. Memphis, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Always happy to talk ball with the good people of the internet,
I guess
the
you can't
the
say good people of
interwebs,
Twitter because I don't know if that's an oxymoron.
YouTube.
Good people of Twitter. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
So,
we'll
I
go
gotta
with it.
say, I listen to you all the time. I think this is the first time I've seen you face to face. I'm at work, so I don't get to see it. I envision you when I seen Memphis. I envisioned you looking like Nicolas Cage in Gone in 60 Seconds because of the Memphis. So
That is where it came from. That my best friend.
is it really?
We met at work like 20 years ago, and he's like, "What's your name?" So my name's Randy. He's like Randall Memphis Young, and it's been Memphis for the last 20, even like my
Awesome.
friends that we've never worked with. It's just
Yeah.
permeated my entire existence. So Memphis it is.
Yeah, because Randall was his first name in the movie too, wasn't it?
Randall
Randall.
Reigns.
Yeah, Randall Reigns. You're right. That's a trip down memory lane. All right, now that I've gone completely off track to start the show, you want to take a second here, tell everyone where they can find your work.
Yeah, just follow at Dynasty WarZone everywhere, preferably YouTube and podcast. If you find us on YouTube, you'll find us on both our YouTube channel, which is at Dynasty WarZone, and then on Sundays we've been simulcasting on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. So you can find us everywhere. If you just search Dynasty Warzone on any social media, kind of like what you do here, you'll find us.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know if it comes up on YouTube as Player Profiler or Roto Underworld, but either way, Dynasty Warzone will find your way to it. Let's get into it then. We've got us, the LA Chargers. A pretty easy quarterback room to decipher. We've got easily, well, I guess top 6 quarterback here, Justin Herbert as the starter, and newly drafted rookie Max Duggan as the backup. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, you have to love Justin Herbert for every form of fantasy football, whether that be, seasonal or dynasty. The guy's averaged 655 pass attempts the last 3 years, and he only played 15 games as a rookie. And I know there's some concerns with Kellen Moore coming in as the new OC, but it doesn't bother me. Over the last 2 years, Dak has averaged, well, Dak or whoever the quarterback is, Dak's had some injury issues of his own. They've averaged 37, 38 pass attempts, whereas they've averaged in the neighborhood of 40, 41. So there is a change at the offensive coordinator position. I
Yeah.
love Justin Herbert from what I do from a dynasty standpoint. He is my QB3, and that's based on the talent, the weapons, and the volume of the offense. I think Justin Herbert's a stud. As far as Max Duggan, it's interesting to have, I don't say professional because he's a rookie, but a guy
Yeah.
that's had a lot of reps in college, and it's a good place to learn. So
He
I
just
love
seems like
Justin Herbert.
he's going to be a long-time journeyman backup there. Career backup is what he's destined for.
Sign me up. Where do I hold that clipboard? I can wear this same hat backwards. You can get rid of my son's travel baseball logo and give me a nice Chargers logo, and I
Yeah,
will happily carry that clipboard for 7 figures a year into
that's what
my
I'm
into my
saying.
early 30s. I'm in.
I'm saying. I would think Herbert as steady or as good as Herbert's been, if him and these pass catchers stay healthy, God, QB3 might be underselling it. Like I know he had with the rib issue last year, and then Keenan Allen was in and out of the lineup, Mike Williams in and out of the lineup. If this team stays healthy, man, it's going to be scary. I know everyone goes Bills or Chiefs or Bengals to win the AFC, but I'd like to take some money and bet it on these guys to win the AFC if they stay healthy. It's a scary lineup.
They have everything but the head coach. I don't love Brandon Staley, the head coach.
Oh,
I was hoping this was the job that fellow AFC West team, the Broncos, they stole Sean Payton. This is where I
oh,
really wanted Sean Payton to go with this offense. But unfortunately, it's another year with Brandon Staley. But
oh.
at least I believe in Kellen Moore to call good offensive plays for fantasy football purposes.
This team would be terrifying with Sean Payton as the coach. Good Lord, that's a horrifying thought. All righty, move on to the running back room here. We have perennial top 2 or 3 running back Austin Eckler, and then a collection of backups that seem to be a second or third round rookie pick every year that seems to miss. We have Isaiah Spiller, Joshua Kelly, and Larry Roundtree. Not a whole lot to see here. No real production out of any of them, and none of them are really useful for fantasy. So I guess we focus on Eckler. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, last year's RB1 overall, and he had 127 targets in the offense, and I expect him to be equally involved. We're going to talk about the wide receivers and tight ends here in just a moment, but here is a really wild stat for you. If I told you there were 5 players, not running backs, not wide receivers, not tight ends, but 5 total offensive players that had 80 or more targets last year, that's almost mind-boggling. That's almost 5 a game over 17 games for 5 different people in this offense. That's how good this offense is. I love Austin Eckler, but he is going into year, was it 7?
Seven, yeah.
Of his career. And based off the snaps played last year, again, new offensive coordinator, but same head coach. And if you wanted a handcuff, but I don't take my own handcuff in seasonal leagues, but in seasonal or best ball leagues, I'm looking to get someone else's handcuff. And in this case, based off the pass catching and the snaps played, it's Joshua Kelly. You hope nothing happens to Eckler, but if something does, Joshua Kelly is the one of these 3 that I would rather have on my roster as a lottery ticket.
What makes you choose Kelly over Spiller and Roundtree?
Snaps played and the pass catching. I think he had. I'm trying to remember. I didn't write down or do a lot of research on Joshua Kelly. I do apologize. But, he played in that Chip Kelly offense in USC. I'm sure that's their rival, UCLA.
Yeah.
And he's a decent pass catcher. And we know the running back has to function in the pass catching role, whether it's been this offense or Dallas's offense. We saw Tony Pollard last year. We've seen Zeke past couple of years. Kellen Moore involves the running backs. Justin Herbert involves the running backs. So if something happens, Kelly would be the one that I would want. I would love to see, as a dynasty gamer, I would love to see Isaiah Spiller get a shot. I'm just not so sure that would happen. So for me, of the 3 backups, I'm going to choose Kelly.
Kellen Moore seems to have a proclivity for targeting the tight end in his offense. You worried at all that he could? I mean, I get Gerald Everett's not a huge threat, but you worried that he could take some targets away from, Eckler. I mean, he's still going to get his share, but you're not worried about that at all? No,
because I don't think all of them are designed targets to the running back. I think sometimes I give Justin Herbert a lot of credit for being smart. It's like he cycles through his read progression pretty well, and he's not afraid just to check it down.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you have some guys that'll try to force a bad pass into a bad spot. Justin Herbert's not afraid to check it down and get it off to the running back. So I think a good portion of those are just check downs as opposed to design passes.
Fair enough. All right, we can move on to a pretty exciting trio here. I mean, I know they're getting up there in age, but the receivers consist of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and the newly drafted rookie out of TCU, Quentin Johnston. We also have Darius Davis, the rookie, Josh Palmer, and Jalen Guyton. I know there was a lot of hype for Josh Palmer. That seems to have been derailed by the drafting of Quentin Johnston in the first round. What do you think here? I know it hinges primarily on whether or not Allen and Williams are able to stay healthy and whether Quentin Johnston can actually catch the ball with his hands and not his body. But there's certainly loads of potential here for these 3.
100%. I'll start with Keenan Allen. I don't have a lot on Mike Williams. I've always wanted Mike Williams to be more than Mike Williams is. And we've seen the potential in flashes and in, sections or segments of a season. I would love for him to put an entire season together. But while I was doing my research for this podcast, because I would never come on the Mad Science Lab not having done my homework, Keenan Allen actually played the final 8 games of the season last year. He tried to give it a go a little bit earlier in the season, missed another 2 games. He basically played 8 full games. He had 89 targets. That is mind-blowing. The guy had 11 targets a game. If Keenan Allen stays healthy, you know where a lot of these targets are going. But Mike Williams, also not the healthiest guy around. He had 93 targets. And then you mentioned Josh Palmer. He had 107. So here's the thing. I am not a big Quentin Johnston guy. I have not been the entire rookie process. But what is the Dynasty world telling us the narrative is on Jordan Addison? It's that, hey, he's going to get a ton of volume because they pass a lot in Minnesota. I got news for you. Based off the health of the two guys around him and the volume of this offense, Quentin Johnston, whether we like him or not, he's going to get volume in this offense. And if he gets just Josh Palmer's target share from last year, which he wouldn't get all of it, but that would be 107 targets.
I
So
didn't
Quentin,
realize he got that many. That's
yeah, he
insane.
was the team leader kind of out of necessity again. Williams and Keenan missed a bunch of time due to injury, but you
That's
see where,
underrated.
yeah, it's under. I mean, if we look back a year from now and we say, man, I would have never thought, Quentin Johnston would have got 5 targets a game. And we can look back because because you're smart, you listen to the Mad Science Lab and you were like, wait a minute, that Memphis guy, that crazy guy with the weird accent, he said there were 5 Chargers last year that averaged 5 or more targets a game. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for volume. We're looking for value. And Quentin Johnston, even though he's not my favorite, doesn't matter. First round draft capital, high volume passing offense. I kind of like all three. And if anyone gets hurt, if you're looking for that 6th or 7th wide receiver to tack on the back end of a deeper best ball build, throw Josh Palmer on there as your wide receiver 7 or 8 because he's probably going to win you a game or two. As far as Jalen Guyton and Darius Davis, I'm like pass.
Yeah.
But man, depending on the format, whether it's dynasty or seasonal or best ball, there's 4 guys on here that if let's say like you're building a best ball stack and you got Justin Herbert and you miss out on Williams and Johnston, throw a cheap Josh Palmer on the back end of that stack. Maybe you get Palmer and like one of the tight ends. I don't know, but I just know that there's a lot more value here because of the volume than people may realize.
Yeah, like you were saying, Allen played the last 8 games. In those 8 games, he was on pace for a wide receiver 5 finish. So that's insane. But I had Josh Larkey on last week, and he was saying, everyone seems to think Williams and Johnston are just going to cancel each other out. But his theory was that Williams is going to operate at a completely deeper level down the field than Johnston will, and they might not have that much overlap. So there might be three essentially valid targets here, usable fantasy assets at the wide receiver room.
I think we're getting ready to talk to the tight ends here in just a second. I think the group that's going to get marginalized, even though that quote unquote Kellen Moore uses the tight end a lot because we saw it the last 2 years with Dalton Schultz when he was in Dallas. I don't look at it as these are tight end routes and these are wide receiver routes. I think it's a depth of target thing. And I think they're going to use a Quentin Johnston a little bit more in those, further away from the line of scrimmage targets, whether it's 20, 25 yards down the field. And they're going to try to shorten that route tree, run less deep routes for Mike Williams. It may increase his volume, and it also may help his health, keeping him off the boundary and those crazy jump balls that he wins and makes tremendous catches. Maybe pulling his average depth of target in a couple of 2-3 yards could really add to not only his production but the safety of his health.
As we transition here to tight end, there's nobody here marginalizing the tight end. Gerald Everett finished as tight end 13 last year and is going off the board this year as tight end 22 in this offense. I have lots of shares of Gerald Everett, and I'm going to continue to get many more shares of Gerald Everett. He also has Donald Parham and Trey McKitty here, but give me all the Everett I can handle at tight end 22. I like to go early tight end if I can get me Kelsey or Andrews, but on the ones where I'm missing and I'm taking multiple shots later in the draft, Gerald Everett is one I'm targeting often.
Yeah, he's part of that famous 2017 tight end class that everybody remembers OJ Howard and David Njoku and Evan Ingram, those guys that went in the first round, but Gerald Everett was in that class too. Super athletic, and he kind of gets overshadowed. He just has a tendency to disappear at times.
Yeah.
But where you're getting him, especially like because right now I'm not trying to hyper focus on dynasty or best ball, but I just know a lot of my friends are drafting best balls right now. It's underdog. It's what's hot.
Yeah.
And Gerald Everett is perfect. If you don't get one of the big three, you don't get Andrews, Kittles, Kelsey, cool. Give me Everett, Gesicki, and like one other guy in a best ball build. Why? Because one of them is probably going to get you a touchdown and 2 or 3 catches every single game. And as crazy as it sounds, like if you get a touchdown and like 2 catches out of a tight end on average a week, you probably got a top 10 player at the position because it is that weak once you get past the big three. So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for options or you drafted Justin Herbert and you maybe you missed out on the stack, at tight end 22, you're going to get more than ample opportunity to build some stacks around a guy, like Justin Herbert because there's so many options. And Gerald Everett had 87 targets last year. Could that come down? Sure, it could. But let's say it comes down 10% and he goes down to 75. That's 4.5, 5, just under 5 targets a game. At the tight end position is much of a barren wasteland as it can be at times. You could do a lot worse and in a lot worse offenses than Gerald Everett.
Exactly. Like you said, he's prone to disappearing from time to time, but any tight end outside the top 6 is also prone to disappearing. So why not just take the value? I mean, look, last year you had Taysom Hill put up 42 points in, what was it, week 8? Finished as tight end 3 based on one game. That's how weak tight end is. Just you could have one 40-point game and you are a top 5 tight end the rest of the year. So like we both said, if you miss on the studs early and you're going to load up late, especially in best ball, Gerald Everett is a great target at tight end 22. I think that's where he is in best ball. That's what I've been using. He may have changed. I haven't looked in a couple of days, but that's where he was. Okay, based on some of that best ball ADP, that's what I normally use as an indicator for eventual redraft. Who's someone you think you're likely to target on the Chargers and have on a lot of your teams?
In best ball and seasonal leagues, it's going to be Keenan Allen. Because as a dynasty guy, I can tell you ageism is a real thing.
Yeah.
And people live in fish bowls. They have the memory of a goldfish. And all people will remember is Keenan Allen was hurt last year and he had injury issues early in his career. They forget about the meat in the middle of that injury sandwich. He had some issues last year. He had some issues early in his career. But if you look at the 5 or 6 years in between, there was a lot of health and there was a lot of fantasy points scored. So there's going to be some ageism on Keenan Allen. And I think you mentioned a great stat over the last 8 games, trending toward wide receiver 5. You will not have to draft him as the 5th wide receiver off the board. No. So I'm going to have a lot of him. Mike Williams injuries are they're different kind of injuries. So that makes me worried about Mike Williams. And, as I was doing the research for this and been doing my rookie drafts in all my dynasty leagues, I've got to respect Quentin Johnston more. I don't love it. We've seen plenty of first-round wide receivers over the last 5 or 6 years. Jalen Reagor, former TCU Horned Frog, comes to mind. We've seen a lot of these guys get punted, even though teams have been, invested first-round capital. But out of all these guys, the guys that I'm going to be looking to add is Austin Eckler. If I miss out on, say, in a redraft or best ball, if I miss out on Jefferson, Chase, Kupp, so I think, to be honest, I think I'd rather have Austin Eckler than Christian McCaffrey at ADP right now. Same draft class, similar age, similar type role. I just feel like for whatever reason, I think we were walking between raindrops last year with a Christian McCaffrey, and it was great that he played all the games, got to a couple of playoff games, but no running back has ever led a Kyle Shanahan offense in San Francisco in rushing 2 years in a row. That's one. 2, it seems like just about everybody who plays there long enough gets injured. That's not an opinion. That's a fact.
No, yeah.
So based on ADPs and where we're seeing these guys, I'm definitely going to have a ton of Keenan Allen because I'm not an ageist, and I'm going to have a lot more Eckler than, say, a Christian McCaffrey or Bijan Robinson. I know Bijan's awesome. Yeah. He's the talk of the dynasty in Fantasy Town, and I understand why. But I've seen Austin Eckler do it. I've seen him do it 2.5, 3 years with this kid, Justin Herbert. And we saw Tony Pollard and Zeke both have, well, especially Pollard had a really good year last year under Moore. I expect, no pun intended, more of the same with the Chargers. So for me, Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen at their current ADPs are guys I'm going to be all over this year.
I mean, I'm sure it's not a huge difference, but I feel like Eckler's got significantly less wear and tear on him than McCaffrey. McCaffrey's pretty much, 300 touch guy every year for his career, whereas Eckler, he was splitting with Melvin Gordon to start his career for the first year or two. So I feel like he might have saved some mileage. Also, Keenan Allen, I've seen him in a couple of redraft or best ball drafts that I've done early, and he's being drafted in, I think I looked to prep for this show, in 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 4, Terry McLaurin's being drafted above him. Keenan Allen's lowest career fantasy finish in a healthy season is like 8 spots better than Terry McLaurin's best. What the fuck are we doing in redraft
I love
anyways?
Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin was one of my biggest hits as a dynasty analyst. I was telling people, you got to get Terry McLaurin. You got to get Terry McLaurin. You got to get Terry McLaurin. I love Terry McLaurin. He's from Indianapolis. I live just north of Indianapolis. So many reasons I love that man, but do not, under penalty of law, do not take Terry McLaurin over Keenan Allen in any seasonal format.
Yeah,
And I've got to be
exactly.
honest, Terry McLaurin, I think he's going to turn 27 or 28 this year. That's right at just on the age apex of
Yep.
dynasty.
Yes, it is.
If you can get Keenan Allen plus for Terry McLaurin because he's quote unquote older or coming off some injury issues, okay.
That Washington offense sucks too. Like,
I
give
mean,
me
it's new.
Keenan Allen.
They've got a new offensive coordinator. We don't even know what it's going to look like. And Jahan Dotson's coming. I mean, like I said, I love Terry McLaurin, but Jahan Dotson's on the way. He looked pretty darn good last year. And I'm not saying he's going to overtake in 2023. He's going to overtake, Terry McLaurin as the wide receiver one. I'm just saying, low volume offense, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. We don't know what this offense is going to look like. Invest, I used to work with a guy who used to say, dig where there's taters. I know there's taters in LA. I know there's, and by taters, I mean fantasy points.
Yeah.
I know there are fantasy points in LA. I know Justin Herbert's a better quarterback than 4 Sam Howells and 3 Jacoby Brissett stitched together into one super quarterback. So I know what I'm getting all across the board in LA. Yeah, I couldn't be with you more.
If Max Duggan was on that team, he might be in contention for the starting QB job. That should tell you all you need to know. I mean, and I'm not a Max Duggan guy. It's just that's the quarterback situation. It doesn't even compare. So,
I mean, and not to say that no, if we were just to trade like a dynasty league, if we were to trade Terry McLaurin straight up for Keenan Allen, I think Terry McLaurin could challenge for a top 5 wide receiver in this offense. But if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, every day would be a Merry Christmas, and it's not. So we got to take the information we have,
absolutely,
and use it to win fantasy and best ball leagues, man.
All right, final question on the opposite side of the board here. Who is someone you're going to avoid on the Chargers? Mike Williams?
For me, it's going to be Mike Williams because I think he'll be the most overdrafted. Now, sometimes you got to go out on a limb because that's where the fruit is. But it's just at his ADP, there's going to be guys around him that can give me. I like to look at it this way: if everything goes right, I'm going to get X number of points per game. The problem with Mike Williams is the likelihood of everything going right is much lower than it is with the guys going around him.
Yeah.
So I know it's there, but I would rather just avoid him altogether. At his ADP. I mean, if maybe he falls around, and I can get him as like my wide receiver 3, cool. Because that's a wide receiver 3 that could win me a week or two. But I'm not going to, because I think you're going to have to draft him as a wide receiver 2, especially in best ball and seasonal leagues, and I just can't get there.
No chance, especially with his health. I'll pass. I'll pass completely. No, thank you. All right, Memphis. Well, thank you for joining me. You want to take another chance here? Tell everyone where they can find you. I know you got to get going soon to your Dynasty WarZone show.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're watching this live or if you happen to be catching this on a podcast, you can follow the show anywhere. I'll make it easy for you. Search Dynasty WarZone on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. You will find us. Our new logo looks like you might say it reminds you of Top Gun, wink, wink, and you'll be like, I'm in the right place. That's the guys. But we also stream on Player Profiler. If you go to YouTube and search Player Profiler, it's a blue and navy blue P, and we appear there every Sunday evening, 9:00. But just search Dynasty WarZone. If not, if all else fails, search DWZ Memphis. You can see it right here on the screen. That's my Twitter handle. Just DM me and say, look, dude, I can't find your stuff. Send it to me, and I'll be more than happy to send it to you.
Who you got on the show with you tonight?
Just my co-host, Mr. Jerry Sinclair. We're going to do a deep dive. So this is something that I do toward the tail end of my rookie drafts. I like to go through Our Lads, or you can use RotoWire, and look at depth charts. And I like to see, hey, we may not have realized, but this rookie is literally an injury away from being a significant contributor, not only this year, but maybe in a couple of years. And from a dynasty standpoint, that can lead you to a nice flip. I'll give you one that's kind of hot right now because this dynasty ADP is rising, and that's Chase Brown with the with the
Mixon.
Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, they're right in that he is listed as the backup to Joe Mixon, but I keep hearing the coaching staff talk up Travion Williams.
Yeah.
And his ADP in dynasty drafts has kind of jumped the shark. He was a nice mid-third rounder in a super flex league, and the last 2 rookie drafts I've done, he's went in the late second. That's a little too rich for my blood because he's not a bell cow. They didn't invest a ton of draft capital in him, and he could be easily replaced. And they're not above, if something were to happen with Joe Mixon legally or physically, they're not above bringing in a Leonard Fournette or a Zeke or even a Kareem Hunt, because this is a team in the hunt, again, no pun intended, for a Super Bowl, and you're not necessarily going to give a ton of that work even to a talented rookie right away. So I liked him early. He's jumped the shark, but we're going to do a lot of stuff like that. We're going to guys in those types of situations that you can get them in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round of your rookie drafts, and in a year from now you can be flipping them for better picks.
I'm going to check it out for sure. I got one more show, 20-minute to record after this. Then you'll probably see me in the chat about maybe 15 minutes in. So thanks again for joining me, Memphis. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Yeah, no problem. This was my thoughts on the LA Chargers with Memphis Young. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thank you, Memphis, and thanks everyone for watching. Have a good night.